Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat Interview. I, of course, am your host, Leo Brady, film critic for AMovieGuy.com, and I am really excited today to be with somebody who comes from a great line of artists. He is a fantastic director. He has made unbelievable movies like the one I love and his other film, The Discovery. But today we're here to talk about his excellent new film, The Summer Book. This is director Charlie McDowell. Charlie, thanks for being with me here today.
Thanks, Leo. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. This is great. So I start this series by asking the same first question to every guest that we have, which and I wonder what your answer will be, knowing who your mom and dad are. Um, is the question is what was the movie for you that made you say, I want to be a director? I want to make movies.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's hard because I think there's probably different stages to that answer, but I would say the movie that stands out to me the most is when I saw Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. And I think the reason was, I can't remember, maybe 13 or something, somewhere around then, maybe even younger.
Yeah.
Um, and and the reason that that movie stands out is I had never really seen like an independent film before. I had
Yeah.
seen I had gone and seen the sort of mainstream movies in theaters. I definitely grew up with, quite a big film knowledge, and I of course knew about a lot of films that my parents were in, but I hadn't seen them. Like I hadn't seen Clockwork Orange yet,
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen a lot of the films my mom was in. But I remember my dad played Bottle Rocket at the house, and it was the first time that I saw something that was, quote unquote, a comedy, which I found hilarious, but I had never seen something like that before. I didn't know that you could be humorous in that way. I was so used to, Ace Ventura and sort of the Jim Carrey era.
Right.
This was just something that was so artistic and weird and complex, and the characters were so funny, but quite contained in a certain way. And I think it was really the first time that I saw that there was a hand behind a movie,
Yeah.
that there was someone who was actually sort of guiding the process and creating something, from scratch. And so I think that sort of opened the door to me wanting to explore more sort of independent film and learn who the directors were. I had of course grown up, on sets with these sort of incredible, Jonathan Demme and these amazing people
Yeah.
that I watched, but I was young and I didn't care about, film in the same way that I of course do now. And so I would say, yeah, seeing Bottle Rocket was the thing that piqued my interest to then kind of introduce more and more filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's interesting too to hear you say that answer because it's definitely more of a unique artist to see a Wes Anderson film and to sort of pick up, that like you said, knowing that somebody behind the camera is doing the work. But it's also interesting to me, and this is always a question that I'm so curious about. Somebody for like you, your background. I talked to Robert Schwartzman about this when I had him on as a guest. I always wonder, like, Thanksgiving's coming up. Like, what is it like to live in that environment of where your mom's an actor, your dad's an actor, your wife's an actor, your father-in-law is a great musician. It's like the conversation just has to be all art all the time. Does it feel like you're often just swirling and living in that constantly, or is it
I mean, I have to say, it's like I would say it's more of a disappointing answer. It's quite it feels just like a family gathering with, complicated family members and, funny conversations, loving conversations, awkward conversations.
yeah,
But of course, there's this incredible, um, artistic minds and legacy, that that I feel, and I I mean, especially I would say, with like my father-in-law, who is a newer member in my family,
Yeah.
and just being so in awe of his talent,
Right.
and then I think my wife feels the same way about my parents,
Yeah.
and what they've done. But yeah, I mean, I think it's this, yeah, it's a balance of just an ordinary, complicated family, and then also some very kind of larger than life people, who have done incredible things.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, and I like to hear that your film that you said was Bottle Rocket. That's a movie that was like a big Sundance hit, and like your first film, the one I love, was a huge Sundance hit as well. Talk about sort of that film, the success of that film out the gate. Was that sort of one? Was it like, all right, that glad I got that done, and I'm glad it went that way because it can dictate a little bit of how the rest of your filmmaking career goes. Was that sort of a, when you look back at that film, are you able to sort of understand and see the path that from where you started to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to say I was so naive to that experience making the film, but also the Sundance experience, and in a way that I so appreciate how naive I was, because I feel like I would have made a different film had I known more.
Right.
In my mind, I was making something that felt like I was sort of at camp with friends,
Yeah.
and I felt very safe, and I also didn't really have an expectation of anything with it. I got to make a movie. That was it. It was like, I finally got to do it. I've been trying for years and years. I finally got the chance to make a movie. And I remember going to Sundance, and I remember we premiered like kind of later in the festival, like a Tuesday night,
Yeah.
um, but I was just thrilled to be there, and we screened, and the movie played very well, and then afterwards they're like, okay, so now we're going to go back to the hotel, and we're going to get the reviews are going to come in. I was like, we get reviewed? I had no idea. And then we got some reviews, and I was like, it's these places that I had grown up hearing about, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all this stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And then they're like, and now distributors are gonna come to the hotel room, and they're gonna put in bids on the movie. And I was like, what? Like, it was so, I mean, again, this was a different time at Sundance. It's a
Yeah.
little different now, but we had people coming in and pitching why they were the right distributor, and it was this incredible experience that, again, I knew nothing, so I just took it in. I was a sponge,
Yeah.
and I would say making the film was the same. It's like I just learned so much every day, and you're quickly learning, and you're quickly adapting and shifting and creating something that you think is interesting, but you have no idea, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I look at that as like a very kind of, you know, bottle experience, that it was a once in a lifetime thing, that I was so lucky that it sort of hit and found an audience, and worked at that particular moment in time. And yeah, I mean, it definitely paved the way for me to make the next one, and then the one after that, the next one, and
Yeah.
you just hope you can keep making the next one, is really what it is.
Yeah. Well, and interesting, again, there seems to be this Sundance theme, but sadly, obviously, we recently lost Robert Redford. Everybody's, loves everything that he did. I love everything that he did. I just been rewatching all of his movies, and you actually worked with him on The Discovery, which was one of his like last few acting performances. Just can you talk a little bit about that, about like working with him and having that sort of it's sort of at least something that you can sort of wink at and say, like, I was really happy to have worked with this great legendary actor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so incredibly blessed that um, that he was even in my life at all, let alone getting to work with him. He was such incredibly um, just partner. He was such a collaborator. There
Yeah.
was never, and this will transition also into Glenn Close because I think there's similarities between this, kind of larger than life generation of actors who
Yeah.
are so incredibly talented. And but Redford was, he never wanted me to treat him as Robert Redford. There was never, like, right away he goes, "My name's Bob," and I was like, "It's really nice to meet you, Mr. Redford." He goes, "It's Bob. Call me Bob." I'm like, "Okay, Bob," and I called him Bob, ever since. And he was just, yeah, it was just a joy to collaborate with him. Of course, he's such an amazing actor, but he's also an incredible director. And so I got to hear just, amazing stories of him being on set and how he worked and how he collaborated with actors. And it felt like my sort of film school. And
Yeah.
and it was really hard. I was in New York promoting the summer book when I found out that he passed away, and it really hit me because I think this incredible generation of actors are getting older and either retiring or passing away. And
Yeah.
I think, Redford was a trailblazer. He was a one of a kind person. He did so much for our community. I mean, I wouldn't be here without Sundance. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be here without what he created. And it came from a real place. It didn't come from like a PR place. It came from an artistic place. And I think today's industry is so different, and the way we consume is so different. And I just think that was such a pure time, and
Yeah.
I think he made decisions based on artistic merit. And I think I just yeah, I just feel like there's so few people around today like him, and he'll be greatly missed by so many people.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, and it's a thing that the summer book, we have to talk about this great film, the summer book. A thing about this film that I thought about, like, and they're not really easy to compare to, but I'm a huge fan of A River Runs Through It, one of Redford's just most beautiful films. And that's a movie about family, and the summer book is very much about family. Tell me a little bit about just like, because if you've seen your other three movies before the summer book, you would have been like, oh wow, that's kind of a shift for him. That's a different kind of movie that he's making. Tell me, how did you land on that, on the book, on turning it into a movie, and really what inspired you to make this beautiful film?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up knowing about Tove Jansson's work. She's this incredible Finnish Swedish author and artist, and she created the Moomins, which is this huge, children's series and characters. And so I grew up loving the Moomins, and in my 20s, I became curious, who she was and what other work she had done. And so that led me to this book called The Summer Book. And I read it, and I just it's such a story that kind of activates all your senses and sort of puts you on this island with these characters. And I had never been to Finland. I didn't know what the archipelago felt like, and
Yeah,
I felt like she sort of transported me there. And I feel like I started to bring my own life and my experiences with my family, my grandmother, my mother, my father.
yeah,
I sort of put myself into the shoes of these characters, and I always remembered the book. I just felt like it was something that stayed in my mind somewhere. And then during COVID, I was, just like everyone, sort of going through existential crisis as
yeah,
to, who am I, and what do I care about, and all these things. And I was like, oh, I should read the summer book again. It took me somewhere else, and I want to go somewhere else right now. And
yeah, yeah,
I read it, and it took on. it was the same as I remembered, and also took on a new meaning for me. And I felt like if there was, nothing else in life, like all my possessions were taken away, the two things I couldn't live without was my family, my, personal connections, and nature. Those were the two things that
Yeah.
I could never live without. And I just felt like that was such a beautiful movie to explore, something that really highlights nature, that allows people to sort of slow down and let the movie kind of wash over them,
Yeah.
in a sort of meditative way. And I really didn't know or care about how an audience would receive a quote unquote slow movie with not a lot of narrative drive at
Right.
this time in the world where everything is quite fast paced. But I didn't care. I felt like it was the right movie to release into the world. I felt like it was something that I could be proud of, even if, 15 people saw it. It
Yeah.
was just something that I felt like should be out there, and so that sort of set me off on this adventure to go make this movie, which was just a total wild ride and experience, and the most connective, amazing experience I've ever had making a film. I just loved every moment of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you really pick that up also from watching it. It like you pick up the beauty, you like there's a tranquility about it, but yet a little bit of tension behind it all. And I just yeah, this isn't a question. I'm just praising the movie. I mean, it's really just um quite a beautiful film. And one thing about obviously we said Glenn Close. I mean, she's so spectacular in this. She's so transformative. She just knows how to, change the way that she acts. But working with her, how does that process go? Do you direct Glenn Close, or is it just like she's got the script, she knows what she's doing, I can point and shoot?
What's amazing, so I think it's both. And
Yeah.
and what's amazing about great actors is they are so naturally talented and so present. And then I'll say they also, and I guess I'm talking about Glenn, I'm talking about Redford, like Plemons, like these guys, they're all people who are so naturally gifted and also all really want direction.
Yeah.
And like Glenn, there are times when Glenn, and she only feels this way. It's not what is coming out. Her performance is always interesting no matter what, even if she's taking it a different direction. But there are times when she as an actor feels completely lost or insecure about what she's doing in a way that you would imagine someone who just started their career would be feeling. And then you realize acting is vulnerable no matter what stage of your career it is, no
Yeah.
matter what you're doing. Like Glenn has, 12 prosthetic pieces. She's playing a woman who's nearing the end of her life. This is not who Glenn is as a person. She's connecting to this character, but she isn't this character.
Yeah.
And so I think for her, like, she was nervous. She was excited. She was all of the emotions playing this character, but she's definitely someone who wanted me to talk about the character with her, wanted me to step in and say like, "Hey, I think we're going too far with it, or we need to reel it in, or we need whatever it is." And
Yeah.
she was very much kind of asking to have that feedback. And I think for me, like, and this is something that I've had to do with every actor, no matter who they are, is treat them all the same. And there was never a moment while I was on set where I was like, holy shit, I'm directing Glenn Close.
Right.
because I knew she wouldn't want me to do that, you know. And of course that happens later, and of course it happens when you go home and it's like me and my wife and I'm talking about the day and I'm just like, oh my God, like it's crazy, you know. I grew up like idolizing this performer. She's so incredible.
Yeah.
But when you're working with her, it has to be about every moment that you're working on. And that's true of everyone I've worked with. And but yeah, but she's just she's such a special, kind human. And I think like that's something with casting that I really focused on is who am I working with? Who do I want to spend time with?
Yeah.
Um, and if it doesn't feel like that fits into my little kind of funny bubble of how I like to work, then I won't make it with that person, or I would just won't do it. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's so important who you work with because I also have to feel comfortable as a director. I'm playing a role as well, so I can't go into it feeling like, oh man, this person hates me. They don't trust me. They fight me on everything I say. Like I'm just not that kind of director. Like I need to feel close with my crew, everyone, you know.
Yeah.
And Glenn is just such a she's so that kind of actor. She wants to be hanging out with everyone from the crew. Like I think in Finland, everyone was a little nervous with this 8-time nominated, Oscar actress coming into town. And then like after day one, everyone was like, "Oh, it's Glenn," like
Yeah.
she's
Oh,
so chill. And
there's Glenn Close having coffee. There's Glenn Close just hanging.
yeah, and like she ended up, she fell in love with the island that we were shooting on so much that she ended up just staying in the house, which was a
Wow.
set. We built the house. It's not a real house,
Yeah.
and it was an island with like no electricity, no running water, and so we'd give her like a little plate of food at night, and we'd all get on the boats heading, and she would text me like, "The swans are coming into the cove at 3 a.m." And I'm like, "Glenn, go to sleep."
We got an early day tomorrow.
Yeah, but she's just like she's so vibrant and youthful, and I love her to death. She's just an amazing person.
Yeah. Well, her performance is excellent. I know we have to wrap. Charlie McDowell, thank you so much for talking with me today. The summer book is now available to rent on all platforms. We hope everybody will see this gem, this beautiful film. And congratulations, and can't wait to talk to you next time.
Thanks so much, Leo. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie. Take care.